Hi, everyone. It's Alex Savage from KTVU, Fox 2 News in the San Francisco Bay Area. And right now, during the coronavirus pandemic, nonprofits all across the country are seeing a huge increase in demand for services. Joining us now to talk more about this issue is Kelly Batson, who's the Senior Vice President of Community Impact at the United Way Bay Area. We're also joined today by Joe Wilson, the Executive Director at the Hospitality House in San Francisco, and Josh Cello, who's the Executive Director of the West Valley Community Services, which is in Cupertino in the South Bay. We appreciate everyone joining in on the conversation. Kelly, I'm going to start with you first off. In terms of what the work you're doing at the United Way Bay Area, you've set up the COVID-19 Community Relief Fund. How much money do you have, and how is that money being used to help nonprofits right now?
Thank you, Alex, for having me. Yeah, so we were able to start the fund back in late March, and with some early funds, we were able to go out into the community and see what the needs were. So far, we have raised just over $5 million, and we have given out about $4.3 million. So we are still giving out some, but unfortunately, we received requests for about $29 million. So we certainly know the need is there, and that we could raise some more funds and get some more money out to the community where it's needed. So our goal for the fund was really in 4 areas. We wanted to help local community service providers to do direct assistance, right? We want to get money in the pockets of the families that need it, that've been impacted the most. We also wanted to help with worker supports. You know, we know some people are looking for how do they apply for unemployment or public benefits, what are they now qualified for? Also, more long-term, how can we start thinking about getting, placed in maybe alternative employment for some sort of short-term? So those are 2 of the categories. The next one is infrastructure, and we really thought about that in terms of technology, right? All of these organizations are having to rethink how they do their work and how they help clients, but also in terms of what sort of cleaning supplies do they need to do, sanitation practices in their food pantries more often. So we wanted to really support organizations. Do they need to pay additional sick time to their staff, bring in temp workers because the volunteers aren't able to come in because they might be some of the more vulnerable population. So we wanted to focus in those 3 areas. And then the last area was really around 211, which is an information and referral helpline available. And we wanted to make sure we could secure this communication tool that we all use to call in. So that's where we're at. That was the focus of our fund. And we've given out that $4.3 million to about 90 organizations.
Yeah, I'm sure that money has already made a huge difference for so many organizations. One of them would be the Hospitality House in San Francisco. Joe, you are the executive director there. How much money did you receive from the United Way Bay Area, and how big a difference did it make for your organization?
Well, we received a grant of $15,000, greatly appreciated. One of the more immediate needs related to the COVID-19 crisis has been the availability of emergency supplies, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer. Those are extremely difficult to get. The fund has allowed us to purchase those supplies for our community residents. The demand has been high, as you might expect, and it's also allowed us to invest in a housing assistance fund, looking at as folks transition from temporary housing arrangements in hotels, actually providing some additional assistance for them to secure more permanent housing. And it's allowed us to think, beyond the immediacy of the crisis and really start planning ahead to make people's lives more stable and more conducive and helpful with the next advent of health implications. So we're very grateful to United Way Bay Area for this.
Kelly made a point about there not necessarily being as many people who are able to come and volunteer at an organization like yours. Have you found that you just have fewer people that can come and help out to provide the services? Have you struggled in that area at all?
Well, we've struggled a bit, but I do have to say that the outpouring of support, particularly through mutual aid networks, people have been really stepped up and been incredibly generous of their time and their talents around making handmade masks, working through their own neighborhood groups to raise additional funds or to coordinate larger networks of volunteers, even if they can't necessarily come on site. And it's really been refreshing and encouraging how the broader community has responded throughout this crisis.
It's inspiring to see people stepping up. It certainly is at a time like this. Let me move to you, Josh, in the South Bay. In Cupertino, your organization, it's the West Valley Community Services, part of a network of nonprofits in the South Bay. What sort of services are you providing to people right now? What's the greatest need? And how much of a help has the United Way's Community Relief Fund been for you guys?
So West Valley Community Services has been in the community for almost 48 years, providing a wealth of services to low-income and homeless individuals and families in the West Valley area of Santa Clara County. Right now, as an essential business, we're down to our two core services, which is food distribution through our food pantry and our mobile food pantry, and rental assistance, which there's been a significant demand for. Year-over-year comparisons, we have had a 176% increase in new clients year-over-year, and about a 300% increase to date in requests for rental assistance year-over-year, which is really, quite astronomical. We're grateful. We've, for a long time, been part of a network that United Way helped found. That's the Emergency Assistance Network, based in Santa Clara County. We're the backbone of social service support offered through nonprofit organizations. And United Way is the organization that brought us together many years ago. And they still work with us so closely as a thought partner. And for us, they were one of the first folks on the ground asking, what do you need? How can we be supportive? What can we do to make your work possible? And we just couldn't be more grateful for the speed and the compassion with which they've come to the table to make all of the work that we do possible.
How important is that financial assistance from the United Way when you look at where your donations are in the midst of this crisis? I mean, are you seeing far fewer people being able to to give to an organization like yours? Obviously, there's fundraisers and other types of events that a lot of organizations are unable to do. Are you having a similar experience?
We haven't yet had the experience where we've had a fundraiser that's been impacted by
Mine. Sorry, Josh, I lost you for a second. I'm trying
to COVID that folks don't fall through the cracks, and United Way is making that possible really right from the very beginning.
I mean, I think with our experience, we have an annual art auction for our low-income community artists. It's our annual fundraiser, generally held in mid-spring in May of every year. We've had to actually postpone that event due to COVID-19. We're having an alternative fundraiser, specifically trying to raise funds to support our community artists. But we're directly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that, as Josh points out, I mean, folks have had to really rely on their ingenuity and just kind of the basic goodness of the community and the talents that are already there in the community. It has been inspiring to see the various ways that people have stepped forward with being so generous of their time and talents. And this is kind of the hallmark, I think, of a community's response to a public health crisis.
Let me, Kelly, ask you about what you guys have seen from the United Way standpoint in terms of how much people are able to give. I know this relief fund, it started with a couple of, it sounds like some anonymous donors, and then some other companies stepped up. But are you seeing people able to give the same way they might normally do during this crisis? Or are you seeing companies stepping up and being even more generous than they otherwise might be? Sorry, I'll give you a moment to.
That's okay. I did that on mute. So yeah, so I think what we're seeing is, of course, the generosity of folks to give to the COVID-19 Relief Fund has been great. We have individuals, we have corporations, we have foundations. Some of our longstanding partners that have been giving to our programmatic work, may have shifted to this or added additional funds to give to the fund. So we are seeing that. I mean, I think, what's partly on the minds of nonprofits is understanding what's to come. Depending on the financial situation of some of our individual donors who may have lost work, or some of our corporate partners who, have not yet seen the impacts of, the change in their business, who might have been giving a large corporate gift to our organization. So I think we have yet to realize some of these things. I think also as a United Way, we partner very closely with companies, with corporate partners, and we go out to their workplaces and we ask those employees to get involved in the community and give through the United Way campaign. And if those companies are either no one's there, right? They're all working remotely. What does that look like? What does it look like to, if that company is having trouble, how do they do that? So I think that we've yet to realize some of these things that are really inspired by the generosity of the folks that have been stepping up. A lot of funders are saying, please use our funds for general operating support, which is a very big need for nonprofits, right? Instead of saying, please use it for this one program, for this one time period, funders that can say, take care of what you have to take care of your team, take care of the needs of the community. That's a really huge sign to us that people are aware of what's happening and that we need to have the flexibility in general operating support. So that's a trend we hope continues for us and for our nonprofit partners.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, where you guys normally would be doing face-to-face meetings with a lot of these corporations and trying to get some of those donations, and it just it's such a struggle to be able to do those things right now during this particular time. Josh, what would be the message that you would like to get out to people who, times are tough for them, but they feel like they would like to help people in need right now? They don't have a whole lot of money to give, but they feel like they want to do something. What would your message be to someone like that?
No one needs to apologize for the amount of money that they can give to help someone in need. Every dollar helps. Every penny helps. It brings us closer to making families whole, keeping them housed, and putting food on their table. And supporting the United Way and this COVID-19 fund is helping so many people in need. I encourage people to look and see what they feel comfortable giving to help a family who's really struggling at this very difficult time.
And these families that you're seeing, are a lot of the folks that you are seeing come to your organization for help? Is this? We've heard that there's a lot of people seeking out assistance for the first time during this particular crisis. Is that what you've seen?
If I can share a story with you that will illustrate that.
Yeah.
So we had an older client, her name is Roxy, let's say, and she'd never ever in her entire life needed to come to an agency like West Valley Community Services. She is in her 70s and she works in the food service industry. And she realized at the beginning of March that there was less business, and she really subsisted on the tips she got from her clients who come into her restaurant, and that there was less and less of tips. But she had always been good at her budget, and she figured out she could make it work. She didn't have a lot in savings, but she'd always make it work. And then mid-March, her boss called her into the office and said, "I'm sorry, this is your last day." And she got her last check, and she has no savings. She was able to live on what she made each month, and now doesn't know what to do because there's no money coming. She doesn't have enough money for a full month's rent, and no prospects in the future. These are the industries, the service, the industry, the gig industry, the hospitality industry that have been hit so hard. And here's a person who's never had to ask for help in her entire life, now coming to us for the very first time.
And thank goodness that organizations like yours are there for such a time as this. Joe, let me ask you guys. You in San Francisco, when you look toward the future, there's so much uncertainty, obviously, right now about how long this is all going to go on for. And obviously, we know the economy is in some big trouble right now, and that is going to hurt a lot of people. If you know, without the assistance you're getting from the United Way, do you have concerns about you know, having to turn people away who come to you looking for help? I mean, is that a real possibility?
Well, that's always a concern. We do see that the demand, particularly in the midst of a crisis, is clearly going to increase. I think that going forward, it hopefully is an opportunity for us to really think clearly about the really wide-ranging and ever-deepening effects of poverty and the intergenerational effects that have on kind of the future of communities and the ability of communities to sustain themselves. And I think hopefully this crisis has fully displayed, a lot of the existing inequities that we knew to be true, and it's pointed out the inability of working people, working class communities, to be able to weather these crises. And it's an opportunity for us to think collectively about reinvesting on a broad spectrum of supports for our communities so that they can do more than survive, but they can thrive. And frankly, I think the future of cities like San Francisco, and the South Bay is going to depend very clearly on our ability to marshal all of our public and private resources toward reinvesting in the very essence of community life, which is kind of the family unit and basic supports for everyone.
And Joe, what would you like to say to someone out there who has been maybe thinking about trying to give to an organization like yours, wants to help people who are in trouble at a time like this, but doesn't have a ton of money to give? What would you say to that person about how much of an impact just a small amount of money could have for an organization like yours?
It makes a huge difference. Personal hygiene supplies, make a difference in people's everyday life. Being able to, socks and underwear, clothing and basic clothing make a difference. And I think there is no action too small that it can't make a difference in someone's life. And so people, I think, at their heart and their best, are generous of both of themselves and their spirit, and those things make a difference in everyone's lives. I'm formerly homeless. I've been on the street. I know the difference that it can make, just eye contact and human touch. And in crises like this, where we're spreading further and further apart, everything that we can do to bridge that gap, our own generosity of our spirit, giving even $1 to an organization that speaks to your values, those things matter in times like this, because giving of ourselves is the gift that really stands the test of time.
Yeah, very well said. Kelly, let me ask you. Obviously, the United Way, Bay Area, you've been there for years and years, helping organizations like these to help people who need it. Is this pandemic right now one of the greatest challenges that you have faced from the standpoint of trying to raise enough money for everyone who needs it?
Yes, I'll say yes, right? I think we've all heard the word unprecedented. I don't think any of us could have imagined this would have, I think when I left my office early March and thought I'd come back, there was things on my desk that, I thought I'd come back to. I think none of us imagined how long this would be, how many people would be affected. I think, the sort of the deep, in terms of just those with the illness, and then the economic impacts. I think that, that's it. What it is doing is, and I think Joe is speaking to this a little, is, it's highlighting some of these inequities that we already had. It's exacerbating some of these problems that we had in communities where people were suffering and did not have what they needed to make ends meet. It's made that even worse, right? And so how, in terms of, the United Way, I think that, some of the programs that we do on a daily basis, outside of the, responding to the COVID-19 crisis is, we work with people to help them become financially stable, to get their basic needs, to work on career and employment opportunities. And we've had to pivot all of those programs to, meet the need as best we can. But I mean, I think we as a United Way believe that we have it really is our obligation and our duty to bring together organizations like West Valley and Hospitality House to say, what can we do? How can we help lift all boats? How can we help lift the community up? I believe strongly that our role is to support the greater, service, community service providers that are out there. And certainly unprecedented. Never did I think that I would be a part of something like this, but really glad that every day I get to work on something that helps to make people's lives better. And I know my colleagues here at the United Way feel the same way.
All right, stepping up to the challenge. We appreciate the work you're doing. Before we go, Kelly, if someone wants to give, and I know they do, what are the easiest ways to do it, to give to the United Way Bay Area's COVID-19 Community Relief Fund?
Excellent. Yes, the easiest thing to do is go to our website, which is uwba.org. And right there on the front page is a link to the COVID-19 Community Relief Fund. So uwba.org. And I encourage you, we also just put out a press release with the list of the many grantees that we were able to give to. And certainly, like I mentioned, we have $29 million in requests. So we certainly were not able to even fill the requests of the ones that we got. So we would encourage you to look at that list and see, all these organizations need more funds to meet the growing need. So, uwba.org is a good place to start.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks out there looking for help at a time like this. I know you guys are doing everything you possibly can to help as many organizations as possible. Really appreciate everybody coming on today, and I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. It's really it's just so important always, but of course at a time like this, it just highlights the importance of it. Joe Wilson, Executive Director of the Hospitality House in San Francisco, thank you for your work. Keep it up. Josh Cello, Executive Director of the West Valley Community Services in Cupertino. We appreciate you coming on. And of course, Kelly Batson, the Senior Vice President of Community Impact at United Way Bay Area. Please, if you can, head to their website and give to the COVID-19 Community Relief Fund. They need your help now more than ever. Appreciate all of you coming on. A really important conversation. Thank you. And we have more information that we've put up at our website. It's coronavirusnow.com. And I'm Alex Savage from KTVU Fox 2 News in the San Francisco Bay Area. Take care.